do we re-elect a governor who may end up in jail?
And there are still people trying to end a woman's right to choose.
With bold reforms, we can get New York
Over the
winning
years,
again.
I've helped my kids by just being there. That's why I want real teachers.
Give us 4 years in Albany, then decide.
Well, welcome to the East Island Vote 2014 campaign close-up. I'm Doug Geed. For the next half hour, we're going to be speaking with Rob Astorino, the Republican candidate running for New York State Governor. Mr. Astorino is currently serving his second term as Westchester County Executive. Prior to his career in politics, he worked in the radio industry. Now, we invited Governor Andrew Cuomo to News 12 Long Island to debate Mr. Astorino, but the governor's office did not return our calls and emails. But we appreciate you coming in, Mr. Astorino.
It's good to be here, Doug.
So you're county executive of Westchester. Long Island is familiar, of course, with Nassau and Suffolk. You are Westchester's Ed Mangano and Steve Ballone. Westchester, Suffolk, and Nassau very similar in terms of our makeup, in terms of upper middle class suburbanites, and very overstressed property taxing residents. So just let's start right off. You know, for the homeowners in Westchester and Nassau and Suffolk, those middle class suburban taxpayers, how would you help us out as governor?
The way I helped out in Westchester, you know, when I ran in 2009, Westchester's a little different than Nassau and Suffolk in regard to the political registration. Here it's more even, Republican, Democrat. In Westchester, of our million people, 49% Democrat, 24% Republican. So everyone said, you can't win, it's impossible. I was 30 points down in the polls on Labor Day in 2009, going up against a Democratic heavyweight who outspent me 5-1, down 15 points on Election Day, and I won by 13 points in very deep blue Westchester. Because we really focused on a couple things: stopping the tax madness, preserving essential services, and promoting economic growth. And I did that in my 4 years. In my first term, we actually cut county property taxes more than any county in New York State. The budget today, when I walked in, was $1.8 billion. It's $1.7 billion now. So we actually reduced spending. As a result, we had 30,000 new private sector jobs and one of the lowest unemployment rates in New York State. And yet we never turned our back on anyone in need. We actually put a little more money into the social safety net programs. So I was reelected last year by 13 points in a county, as I said, overwhelmingly Democrat. But we attracted, in our 4 years, governmentally and politically, a lot of Democrats to cross over. I won the majority of Hispanic vote, and we're 22% Hispanic in Westchester, 25% of the African American vote. So we did this collaboratively because we had some big problems. Structurally, we had a major deficit. That was my gift from my predecessor, among other things. But we actually worked through them in a collaborative way. I have a Democratic county board, so we work bipartisan to actually get these things done.
Hearing everything you're saying, it sounds like what Andrew Cuomo is saying about his 4 years in Albany. The state was a mess. We had a $10 billion deficit. I've grown jobs. I've cut taxes. In fact, instead of me saying it, let's hear actually from the governor himself in terms of how he says he's been effectively turning around the economy of the state.
New Yorkers don't like losing. So why do we accept being dead last in America under Andrew Cuomo? Highest taxes, the worst economic outlook, the most people leaving a state? Cuomo has struck out for New York.
So we've brought down taxes, and that has brought up jobs. 511,000 new jobs. This state has more jobs than it has ever had in the history of the state of New York.
All right, I mean, would you agree that the state is much better off today than it was 4 years ago?
I'd ask the average Long Islander, has your property taxes gone down? Do you feel like your electric rates have gone down? Do you think things are better? Because they're not. And it's the same for Westchester and around the whole state. You know, the 500,000 new jobs he said he's created, let's put that into perspective. That's over 4 years at best. A lot of those are second jobs that people have had to take out just to pay the taxes and to put food on the table, or put a little money in a 529 account for their kids like we're doing.
Which is kind of what's happening across the nation, though, to be fair.
Yeah, but that 500,000 jobs over 4 years, Texas created almost 500,000 jobs last year alone. That's what a good economy looks like. We are, against the other 49 states measured, we're at the bottom of the rankings in just about everything that matters. Worst business climate, it says it in the commercial, but worst business climate, worst economic outlook. You know, we grew as a state 0.7%. Now, to put that in context, America is 1.8%, and that's brutal. So we're lagging behind everywhere, and this state continues to fall down, and people continue to look at it like a prison sentence living in New York now. A couple more years, and I'm out of here. And that shouldn't be, because this is New York. We could be the greatest state again, but we got to change policies, not this high tax, high spend policies. Now you've got the governor hooking up with Bill de Blasio and that agenda out of New York City, which he publicly promised to do. You know what that's going to mean? Much higher taxes, much more spending. That's the last thing we need here on Long Island, in Westchester, or anywhere in this state.
Let's talk about 4 on-time budgets in New York State. Has not happened in 40 years, and the erase of that $10 billion deficit. I mean, those are accomplishments. Does he not get credit for that?
Well, first of all, with the on-time budgets, you're supposed to do that. Secondly, what's in the budget's far more important than just getting it done on time. You know, you look at the taxes. Taxes are the highest there are in the nation, not just property taxes, income taxes as well, corporate taxes. You know, just by moving the dial by an inch and claiming victory is an undeserved victory lap, because we're still at the bottom compared to all the other states. So I ask people, you know, do you feel like things have gotten a lot better? They haven't. People are struggling in this state. You know, the middle class is getting squeezed like never before. Those on the lower levels for income, they can't make it up to a higher level because the jobs aren't there. The jobs that are being created are low-wage jobs, too, concentrated around New York City. So things are not going well, and when you turn on the light, wait till you get that bill at the end of the month, too.
Well, he gets criticized on the left for cutting a lot of business and corporate taxes. What would you do? I assume tax cuts you're talking about for companies?
Well, first of all, the property tax cap goes away in 2 years. It expires. That should be made permanent. We have a plan that the Wall Street Journal said is bold and exactly what New York needs to lift the economy. We would be the most competitive state in the Northeast. That's what our plan would do. It would take away income taxes from 8 brackets down to 2, and the thresholds would be $200,000 individual, $300,000 family. Anything lower, it's 4%. Anything above it, it's 6%. People actually could keep much more of their money and pay for the bills, and actually maybe go on vacation or to a bowling alley once in a while. But we'd also eliminate the estate tax and cut the 18A, which is the utility taxes. That's what's driving up, it's the nuisance tax, it's driving up the cost of utilities. It's actually hurting manufacturing in this state because they're leaving because of the high energy costs. You know, when you look at the surveys, the AARP said in their survey, 61% of those 50 and over in New York are likely to leave this state. 41% in Gallup of New Yorkers said that they would leave if they could. We've got to change the state, and just continuing down the same ruinous road is not going to be good. The other scary part, by the way, is if Andrew Cuomo gets a second term and is allowed to follow that Bill de Blasio agenda and the Assembly Democrats out of New York City, that is only going to mean extraordinarily high taxes. The only safeguard that you have, certainly on Long Island, is someone who lives in suburbia and understands it very, very well, and that would be a Republican governor, that would be me, who would be the check and balances that we would need from a runaway New York City Council and a runaway Assembly. All
right. To be fair, though, he has worked well with Senate Republicans, and I know what he has said publicly about supporting Democrats, but there still seems to be a good relationship there, but that remains to be seen. And the estate tax, isn't that already a drastic cut and being phased out? No, not a drastic cut, a small phase down. But look, you've got Florida, for instance. You know, New Yorkers used to go down to Florida for a vacation, or North Carolina for a vacation. Even the snowbirds would always come home. Now, people aren't coming home. They're moving in record numbers. We've had 400,000 in the last 4 years. So if things were really good, if the cost of living were acceptable and easy, people would stay here because nobody wants to leave. But just to peck away at the margins means we're still the highest tax in America. I want to move on to a topic here. The 2-year anniversary of Superstorm Sandy is coming up. It's obviously a huge, huge issue for Long Islanders, and Governor Cuomo has received some criticism, some credit by some, criticism by others for his handling of the program, especially New York Rising. Here's what he said in a recent News 12 Long Island interview.
Look, I wish the number was 100%, right? You don't want anyone who doesn't feel that all their needs were met. But literally, I would say 98% of the people who have been serviced by the program have been serviced very well. It's almost impossible in these situations to make everyone happy on everything.
Hi, my name is Pat Donahue. I'm from Seaford, Long Island. Mr. Astorino, my home was destroyed by Sandy, and I have friends and neighbors whose homes were destroyed by Sandy. Many of us are living in rentals. We're paying rent and mortgage at the same time, as well as taxes. What would you do if you were elected to get us out of this mess and get us home?
All right.
Yeah, that's a great question, too. And I visited with people in Mastic Beach and Seaford and other areas, and just this past weekend in a home that's been gutted still 2 years later, which is, it's not unreasonable for people who have been displaced, who were promised, and now they're dealing with a bureaucratic nightmare and they can't get back into their homes. I think for most people, the New York Rising has been a bureaucratic mess. To have the thousands of people that are still displaced, not just here on Long Island, by the way, right, but also throughout New York City,
sure,
proves that it's become bungled. It's become a bureaucratic nightmare. It should have been centralized. People need to get answers more than anything. They need to get answers in a centralized location, not to be sent all around. Now, when we were hit by Sandy, what we did was, because the frustrations grew from people who were trying to call Con Edison and to get answers about when the lights were coming back on, we put everybody at the Westchester County Center, our arena, like Nassau Veterans, and we put the utility companies, social services, everyone they would need to get an answer in one location, so it's one-stop shopping and they don't have to be suffering on a phone or not have an internet capability. That's really what's needed. The bureaucracy needs to be shaved down so people can get answers and get their checks.
So you could do that now. That's what you would do. What you're saying is
absolutely. That's what has to be done. And in my conversations with a lot of Sandy victims, that's been the biggest problem.
Okay. I want to switch gears a little bit. Ed Mangano, the Nassau County Executive, has worked closely with the governor. Superstorm Sandy, they saw quite a lot of each other, and he did not endorse you. And I believe we have Mr. Mangano as well.
As long as I can remember, state government never worked, and certainly never helped Long Island. But 4 years ago, Governor Cuomo started shaking up Albany. I'm a Republican, and I'm voting for Governor Cuomo, because his leadership is working for Long Island.
All right, for you to win, you need a big turnout here on Long Island.
Yep.
That had to be, that had to hurt.
No, you know, look, I know Ed for 5 years because we both got elected on the same day in 2009 when everyone said we couldn't win. And I respect Ed. However, you know, Ed is dead wrong. Now, look, I think, as most people think, this was the payback that Ed had to give in order to get the red light cameras passed by the governor, which I think is an unmitigated disaster. It's just a money grab, red light cameras. I can't stand them. You know, you have a financial control board here in Nassau County, which the governor controls. So I don't, you know, for the life of me, know why anyone would want to put their arms around a governor who's under federal investigation for corruption right now, witness tampering, obstruction of justice, failure to report crimes. That's what the U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara is looking at. And in the debate the other night, when I asked the governor to just clarify if you want, just look people in the eye and tell them you have not been subpoenaed, you're not under investigation, he couldn't do that. Twice he was asked, including afterwards in the press conference, and he can't. So you got a governor who is under investigation, so I don't know why anyone would want to put their arms around that.
Amazing to me that no one started a Stop Red Light Camera party, because I feel like that candidate would win.
But I have a Stop Common Core
yes,
party.
That is true. Do you have them in Westchester, by the way? Red
Limited,
light camera, school
in the
zone,
city of Yonkers, wanted it. It's something I can't stand because it does nothing, I don't think, including AAA thinks so and other motorist groups, to make anyone safer. It is pure and simple a money grab. And it may very well cause accidents as people freak out going through, looking at the camera, and is it yellow, is it red?
So what would you say to those county executives like yourself
I'd say
if you
no
become
more.
governor and mayors who depend on that income coming
I would
in?
say no more. Start looking at other ways that you can cut like I've cut. You know, there's a property tax cap which expires. We didn't need a property tax cap. I've gone 5 budgets now with no tax increase. We actually cut property taxes. And we have a budget that's smaller. Is it tough? Yeah, you got to make some tough decisions. But we did it, and we'll continue to do that in the state.
Just dawned on me that in Westchester County, your constituents include Andrew Cuomo,
the Clintons,
and Bill and Hillary Clinton.
That's right. And they should all be thanking me for cutting their taxes.
I assume they don't have Astorino for governor signs on their lawns?
You'd be surprised.
All right, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll continue our campaign close-up with gubernatorial candidate Rob Astorino right here on News 12 Long Island. Welcome back to the Silent Vote 2014 campaign close-up. In the studio with me, Rob Astorino. He's the Republican candidate running for New York State governor. And we did invite Governor Andrew Cuomo to join us for a News 12 Long Island debate with Mr. Astorino, but the governor's office did not return our calls and emails. But again, we appreciate your time with us.
Thank you, Doug.
Common Core, that has touched everybody across the island here in Long Island. You got a lot of very angry people.
Yeah, well,
What's
I'm
your
one
solution?
of them, and concerned, too, because my wife and I have 3 kids. We have an 11-year-old son and daughter's age 9 and 5, so K through 6th grade. And I've seen Common Core in all its glory right around the kitchen table. And it's a disaster. And Cuomo's Common Core, the rollout and the implementation has been a nightmare. You've got federal government basically guiding decisions in our classrooms right now. It's going to be a massive tax increases down the road. That's what this proposition is about, to borrow all these billions of dollars to comply with Common Core. I'm saying we should get out of Common Core. I'm running on the Republican, Conservative, and Stop Common Core ballot lines. You can vote for me on any of those three, and it counts. And we've had a lot of good Long Islanders helping us on this campaign who are just as concerned. You know, we need to have teachers that are actually teaching, not teaching to a test. In my kids' schools, they spent 3 weeks for the ELA, 3 weeks for the math, period. That's all they did, basically. Right. And teachers shouldn't be teaching automatrons. That's what they're becoming, testing automatrons. Right. The creativity's got to go back in the classroom. What we would do, and I ask people to go to robastorino.com for our education plan, which would completely put more accountability on the governor and the Board of Regents for our education. We spend more on education, as Long Islanders know and we know in Westchester with our taxes so high. We spend more on education in New York than any state in America, and we're in the middle of the pack in results. So that's unacceptable. I want higher standards and a rigorous curriculum, but I want it New York-based, and I want the input from our parents and our teachers and our school board members on a local decision-making.
Okay. I believe we have a comment or a question from a Long Islander, and in the interest of fairness, let's hear from Governor Cuomo as well on the issue.
I have nothing to do with Common Core. Common Core is established by the Board of Regents, which is established by the legislature. I don't appoint anyone to the Board of Regents. I had absolutely nothing to do with it. The only thing I did do with Common Core was I stopped the grading of Common Core. It was chaotic. It's caused anxiety. It's caused stress. There's too much testing, too little learning. I stopped it with a 5-year moratorium.
My name is Danielle Flora, and I'm from Islip. Mr. Astorino, hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers, parents and educators have been looking for a legislative response to the myriad of concerns we have for our educational system here in New York State. If elected as governor of New York, how would you address these concerns, specifically Common Core, over-testing, and the defunding of public schools?
All right, so essentially you get together a panel of experts and kind of refine what Common Core.
That's a great question. First of all, the governor to sit there and try to backtrack right before an election to cover his tracks is totally irresponsible. It is Cuomo's Common Core. He wrote letters to the Board of Regents demanding APPR, demanding a fast-track implementation. He stands by it. One of the reasons he got the Business Council endorsement is purely because of Common Core and his support for it. I have been dead set against Common Core from day one because I see it for what it is. And I think, as she said, too, we would go back to what was called the lost standards. The Board of Regents were working on elevating the standards in New York in 2008, 9, and 10, de-emphasizing some of the testing, putting more decision-making locally in our school districts, and proper funding. That was pulled immediately, halfway through their project, when Common Core came around and the federal government said, you need some money, you want some money, and New York rushed into it, gobbled up the money, and now everyone's looking for the receipt because they got into something they didn't know what they were getting into, and now they want to get out of it, except for New York. This governor stands by it. We need to get out of Common Core. You know, look, I'm a taxpayer. My wife and I live on a quarter-acre piece of property in a typical blue-collar neighborhood in Westchester. We're at almost $16,000 in taxes on our 1,900-square-foot home. It is crazy. And it is exactly the same here on Long Island. People are just, they can't breathe anymore when it comes to taxes. So we have to do some meaningful things. I mean, meaningful things, not nibbling around the edges like this governor and think it's over with, in order for our middle class to stay, our working poor to get better jobs and be able to live here. And that's why I'm running, because we got to stop this tax madness, and I get it. And Common Core is very important to get rid of, because I think we're going on the wrong path with education. But I hope people go to my education plan because it's pretty bold.
All right, let's talk about...
Also, you know, the governor took away $7.5 billion in education aid from our local school districts. They were then forced to raise taxes or to cut programs and teachers to make up the difference when he didn't give them the tools to overcome that, which is what we need to do.
All right, women's equality. And just so viewers understand as well, there's the 10 issues, and 9 of which are on equality and 1 on the very hot debated issue of abortion. Let us actually hear from the governor and a Long Islander as well here.
And let's pass a women's equality agenda to treat women fairly,
for my family and for yours.
As far as a woman's right to choose, all my law says is codify Roe v. Wade, which was a court case 40 years ago that gave a woman a right to choose. It doesn't increase it at all. He is against it. He has said that I'm a Catholic, and the Catholic Church is against abortion, and I won't let it happen. It's ghastly. I understand that. I'm a Roman Catholic, too. But you uphold the law. You don't uphold your religion. And I respect a woman's right to choose, and I will defend it.
My name is Nancy Gambia. I live in Comac, New York. County Executive Astorino, what do you agree and disagree with about the Women's Equality Act?
Said it very distinctly. I should let her host. Okay.
Well, Nancy, I agree with 9 points. And we've all said pass the 9 points. And the Democrats and Republicans in the Assembly and Senate, National Organization of Women, the bill sponsors, passed the 9. Governor Cuomo is using the 10th point for purely political reasons. It is a very divisive issue. It's a very personal issue for a lot of people. This is a pro-choice state. I get that. I happen to be pro-life. But, you know, this was Roe v. Wade was 40-something years ago. We passed abortion legal in New York 3 years before that. Abortion's not going anywhere. It's the boogeyman issue, so he doesn't have to talk about why he's under federal investigation for corruption or why taxes keep going up. But what I will not do is what Governor Cuomo wants to do, and that language, makes no bones about it, would allow abortion, unrestricted access, up through 9 months. And the language in that bill specifically takes out that it must be performed by a medical doctor. So that's why it's so controversial. It's very out of step with even most pro-choicers who totally disagree with that. But it's his issue to try to rile some people up and try to not talk about how miserable this state is under Andrew Cuomo.
And you would try to urge state legislators, look, split it up, let's vote on the 9.
Do the 9, absolutely.
Okay.
Put it to the floor and do the 9. Okay. And that takes away the divisiveness, and you can focus solely on that one issue if you want to, which doesn't have enough votes to pass even from pro-choicers.
An issue the governor's taken some heat on, and one that you like to talk about, I know, is the Moreland Commission.
Oh, yeah.
The disbanding of the commission has gotten a lot of attention. In fact, let's hear from the governor what he had to say in the debate recently.
Cuomo is at the center of Albany corruption under federal investigation for obstruction of justice, witness tampering.
There was no abrupt stopping. I wanted the commission to get a law passed. That's why I impaneled it. I said to the legislature, when you pass the law, the commission will go away. They passed the law. The law has an independent enforcement agent, redefined bribery, was applauded by all the DAs, and that's what we needed, was a new law so the DAs could actually prosecute. And that's what we produced.
All right. You agree with that?
Ask Preet Bharara, the U.S. Attorney, if he agrees with that. That's why Andrew Cuomo is under federal investigation right now. Preet Bharara the other day said that Albany is a corruption disaster. How many more legislators do we need to be indicted before we figure this out? And we've got a governor now who was in 2010 saying that New York is a disgrace in its corruption. He was going to be the white knight to clean it up. The problem is now he's swimming in that cesspool of corruption so deep that he's being investigated himself. And only in New York could the Anti-Corruption Commission have already been corrupted. It's got to come to an end. And you know why? Ethics matter. You have an unlevel playing field. It's why the economy is bad. It's why people are leaving. It's why taxes keep going up. We're basically paying a stealth corruption tax now for the deals that they cut for themselves. Who do you think pays that? We all have to pay that. Hardworking taxpayers pay that. So my plan starts with term limits. 8 years. 8 is enough. Remember that old show? 8 is enough. 8 years for governor and statewide, 8 years for legislators. That's enough time. Also, if you are convicted of corruption as a public official, you lose your pension. There's a whole plan. I hope people go to Rob Astorino and read it. There's also our tax plan, our job plan, our education plan, our interurban renewal plan, which is so important. So I think there are a lot of different reasons why Andrew Cuomo has had his chance over 4 years. If anything, he's made a baby step. We don't need a baby step when you're dead last in the country and people are moving out in record numbers. You need some monster steps, and that's where we need to go.
Speaking of a monster step, many say it's a monster step for you to win.
Nope.
Your numbers have been down in the polls. Your recognition was down. We're a week or so away.
Yep.
I mean, how are you going to pull this off?
Because typical average New Yorkers are going to say, you know what, we've had 4 years with Cuomo. Nothing's gotten really any better. The state's going in the wrong direction. He's not doing his job. The tax bills keep coming in and in higher and higher. Electric rates higher and higher. You go through it, good jobs are leaving. we need to make some big changes. It's what I did. It's why Democrats voted for me in Westchester, a very deep blue county, and we won twice by 13 points because we cut taxes more than any county. We're living within our means, and we're putting people first, and that's really what we have to do. These ads that you see on TV every day by Andrew Cuomo, almost $40 million in negative false advertising. The soup commercial, which is so misleading. Even the New York Times said it was wrong. You've got, I want to put guns in every school with every kid. I mean, it's nonsense. But now you're looking at a very panicked politician who feels it's slipping away. And so we can do so much better. And I'm ready to lead this state, just like I'm leading a very big county. And we have a healthy balance now in Westchester between what we can afford and what we need. And that's what the mindset we need to bring back to state government.
Here's your opportunity to say something good about Andrew Cuomo over the past 4 years. I mean, many would say the state was in horrific shape and is much better. You're saying it could be better. What's he done good?
I'll tell you one thing, the Tappan Zee Bridge. It's something that I've advocated for, the replacement of the Tappan Zee Bridge. He gets credit for getting it over the finish line and actually moving it ahead. The problem, though, is he has no idea what it's going to cost, and we have no idea what the tolls are going to be. They're looking at tolls right now, $5, probably going to be $15. He has put all those decisions off until after the election. He won't tell anybody what it is. And so the lack of transparency is not good whatsoever. I think we can do better here on the island with Sandy relief. We certainly need to bring taxes down in a meaningful way. Otherwise, we're going to lose everybody.
Okay, we've got 10 seconds. Any ties to Long Island? I know you said born and raised in Westchester.
I've been coming out to Long Island my whole life. I've got family in East Williston and Seaford and North Belmore and Huntington and Babylon. Right. You go on and on. It's a great place.
All right, we appreciate the time with Rob Astorino, the Westchester County Executive, Republican gubernatorial candidate. And again, in interest of fairness, we invited Governor Cuomo as well. Thanks for watching here on News 12 Long Island.